It's not food, it's violence. All the animals wanted to live. It's not food, it's violence. Choose something else instead. Jesus is vegan now, and God is too. If you want to get to heaven, you better be vegan too. Fuck milk, cheese, eggs, or any kind of meat. Buy broccoli, tofu, and vegan food to eat. God wants us to be kind to the animals, or it's true. You risk getting roasted on the devil's barbecue. Okay, so hi everybody. I am Miss Katie, that vegan teacher, and today with me is somebody whose name is Pat Nonis. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me on. It's great to touch base with you again.
Right. So Pat is, you can see at the bottom of the screen there, it says that she's a PhD candidate in law. And so you are living in Australia right now. And how long have you been vegan for?
So yeah, I'm Sydney based. I've lived here for about 7 or 8 years, and I've been vegan for around the same time.
Yeah, so about the same as me. A lot of people seem to turn vegan around the same time. I don't know what was in the air at that time, but there sort of seems to be a lot of people that I meet who around 2016 became vegan. Do you remember your date, or was it in 2016 or?
It was sort of mid 2015, and I feel like every generation had a different trigger for animal rights or veganism. So the generation before mine or yours, I think Peter Singer's Animal Liberation book, a lot of people I meet from that kind of generation credit that for their vegetarianism or veganism, hopefully. And I think our generation is more sort of Gary Yourofsky's videos,
right,
and his speeches and things like that. Because if I'm in a room with 10 vegans, which hardly ever happens anymore because I'm always by myself, but if I'm in a room with 10 vegans, at least 5 of them will credit him for animal rights and veganism.
Including me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Gary. Well, many people. You know, that's why I came up with this idea that it takes 100 clicks to become vegan, because it's Gary Yourofsky, and then it's all of these other different clips, even PETA videos. A lot of people speak out against PETA, but if it wasn't for them, I don't know if I would have seen a lot of the stuff that I've seen. And just regular folks over on Facebook who were posting videos of themselves with their animals and posting rescues. I mean, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different angles that helped for me to become vegan.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I like your 100 clicks theory or 100 clicks proposal. And I think there's definitely up and downs to an organization like PETA, but they can be a little bit cringy, a bit over the top. But I can't deny either that they do amazing work in terms of undercover footage, and just their reach justifies a lot of the good they do, I think.
Yeah, and the thing about PETA, although they have been criticized for many things, and people tell me don't promote them in any way, I'm not necessarily promoting them, but when it comes to, for example, letting kids know about a site that they can go to, I mean, PETA Kids is really good. They have all these free stickers they give out. They have all these coloring books. They have videos aimed at children. They have lots of highlighted children that are amazing animal defenders. And then they speak in a friendly way for kids. So that's why I tell people to go to that site for kids, especially.
Yeah, I don't think we can afford to be too selective, and especially when we're not that selective in many other areas of our life. So, for example, just because I share something from CNN or Fox News doesn't mean I subscribe or support everything they're doing. So I kind of hold the same policy to animal rights videos and content.
So, Pat, I wanted to ask you, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges to the animal rights movement right now?
Oh, everything. But if I had to nail it down to about 3, I would say animal welfare, ironically, because we're talking about PETA and animal welfare organizations. But a lot of
you want to explain before you go on, what does that mean? Because people really don't understand the difference between
welfare and welfare.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a dichotomy, I guess, in this area of animal ethics or animal rights issues between animal welfare and animal rights. So animal welfare is the idea that it's okay to exploit animals if they're given if their conditions are somewhat okay or morally acceptable. But at the end of the day, it's still okay to kill them, if they're treated nicely. Animal rights denies all that and basically says, no, if someone is conscious and sentient and of a certain autonomy, they deserve fundamental rights which can't be taken away unless in very exceptional circumstances. So that's
And you and I are both against welfareism because we think there's no right way to do the wrong thing.
Yes, exactly. Among other reasons, but that would be the main rationale.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess having this idea dominate the narrative in all things to do with animals is very damaging because, well, it gives the message that it's okay to exploit someone. It's okay to eat animals or, treat them in a certain way as long as we treat them nicely before their death, which, if we're talking about farm animals, is still 4 years old if you're a cow when they can live up to you. That's not even the point. I don't even like drawing attention to that a lot of the time. The point is we're exploiting and killing them.
Yeah. I find that because I deal with, a lot of children, I sort of got myself into a niche where I'm talking to kids most of the time, that I have to speak differently than is the actual 100% reality, because I have to talk in very simple terms. So I have to, or not the reality. I mean, I'm speaking the truth, but when I say things like that the cows live to a certain age and they shouldn't be killed young and things like that. And there's much more eloquent ways that I would speak if I was speaking to adults, for example. But kids, you have to sort of try to grab them with where they're at and get them to think about things, because, well, even a lot of adults, though, think that the animals are killed when they're older. I mean, just so much education that needs to be done.
That problem or challenge you have with kids, I have the exact same problem in academia.
Oh, yeah?
Most educated, so-called intelligent adults, not necessarily at the school where I'm at now, but most other schools I've been to, the way you're supposed to write in academia, the sort of debates you're meant to have, you can't just go in there saying animal holocaust, rape, slavery, murder, even though you 100% should be able to.
You're actually, wait, you're not allowed, or it's not encouraged?
There's no legislation saying a PhD student or an honors student can't say animal holocaust or refer to the treatment of animals as holocaust.
Okay.
But you're not permitted to. I can't turn in a paper saying animal murder is this, like if I want to say that, I need to have all these reasons why it is murder or it is rape. I couldn't just say it in the way I would be talking about a human rape victim, for example. And it's wrong and it's annoying. So just drawing on that comparison, your thing with kids, I have the same thing with adults.
Okay. Did you want to say anything else about the biggest challenges to the IR movement? What do you think about? Sorry?
Well, there's obviously crazy intersectional leftist.
I was just going to ask. Yeah.
That's probably just as bad, if not worse, than animal welfare, because I can kind of understand the rationale behind welfare sometimes. I wouldn't spend ages talking about it because I don't want to give that issue much attention, but I understand.
Sorry, I didn't understand you there. Just maybe speak a little slower. Say that again.
So I think in some ways the intersectional issues are much worse for animal rights than welfare, because in some ways I understand the rationale behind welfare. I don't like to give too much attention because I'm animal rights focused. I'm focused on liberating animals.
Yeah.
But I understand this rationale of not wanting to cause too much pain or reduce as much as possible the amount of suffering you're going to cause someone before you exploit them for your own needs or your own desires.
Right. But a lot of people start off like that, and I remember at the beginning too thinking, well, if we have to eat animals, if we just find a nicer way to kill them. And then, once you just go into it more and you realize that it's not okay.
Yeah, it's a simpler kind of ideology to debunk. But with intersectionalism, there's all these different and equally crazy routes that these people go down that really take away from the animal rights message. And frankly, it's just infiltrating the movement with nonsense. And it's stemming from this kind of American wokeism, very far left-wing ideology that's also very present in academia, in all levels of society, but it's definitely within the animal rights movement as well. And I would probably say that has number one, to be honest, human rights, intersectional SJW issues, and then animal welfare. Maybe 10 years ago it would have been welfare, but it's taken the number one place now.
Right. So do you want to talk a little bit about theory building?
Yeah, so when you first asked me some of the things I would like to talk about, theory building is just what I'm currently doing with my PhD. So I'm focused on constitutional law, which, do you want a breakdown of that or?
Sure.
Yeah, so basically it's the area of law that deals with the duties that is owed to the individual from the government and state, and the duties that individuals owe each other. And it's also to do with the breakdown of the separation of powers in our society. So the executive branch, the legislator, and then the courts. So what I'm doing when I say theory building, I think in academia, if you are an animal rights person, it's important to come up with distinct legal theories on how we relate to animals. So I think you might be familiar with someone like Gary Francione.
Of course, and that's another person that helped to make sure that I became vegan.
Yeah, no, I think his book Animals, Property and the Law is a masterpiece. But yeah, so he came up with...
Say the title of the book again in case anybody wants to look it up.
It's called Animals, Property and the Law. Mm-hmm. It's dense academic.
Yeah, he's a lawyer.
Yeah, he was a lawyer for a long time for animals.
And he's I guess a professor now at, I think, Rutgers University. I think he's in New Jersey or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I actually saw him give a presentation at a conference I was at, international conference, mid last year, and actually went after him. But he's such a good public speaker, because I'd only ever seen him on YouTube videos, and he comes across quite mild-mannered and a little bit timid almost. But when he's presenting, when he's in his zone, he was very charismatic, a little bit like Yarovsky. Neither of them would like that said about each other because they hate each other. But yeah, he was very good. So his theory is to abolish the property status of animals. So
well, let me just, I'm very curious about what you said. Why do you think that they hate each other, Gary Yarovsky and Gary Francione?
Oh, I don't think it. They've explicitly said it about each other at different points in time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. Why are they saying that? What is the fundamental? Because they're both very strong animal rights activists.
Yeah.
They are both very outspoken and 100% ethical. It's not for the food. I mean, so what would you say? What would you say are the fundamental differences between the two?
Yeah. So my understanding is Francione has a very strong view on pacifism, in that he is very 100% pro-pacifist in every situation. I read once that he thinks handing out pamphlets is too aggressive for vegan activism, and we should really just be talking to people about veganism and being vegan. Gary Yarovsky is the...
Okay, wait. I just let that sink in for a second, because I can't picture him saying that. He is saying that standing there behind a table and handing out pamphlets. Are you sure that's too aggressive?
Unless he's changed his views, or unless someone has...
Because like you said, when you see him speaking in real life, he's like pretty animated. He's not, he's not just sitting there like Gandhi quietly just waiting for people to come to him. Like,
no, but I
don't know.
You come to him in a sense because he's giving a lecture at a conference, he's educating people. But I think in the context of maybe street activism and handing out pamphlets to people, or maybe something like Anonymous for the Voiceless, he thinks might be too aggressive. Unless someone can provide a view on contraire, like I've read that situation wrong, or he's now changed his view. That's how I understand it.
Whereas Gary Yarovsky is just tell it exactly as it is, and he said made some very provocative statements about
exactly. Yeah. He's not just tell exactly as it is. He's explicitly supported violence for animal liberation. So they're on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think that's where the dislike stems from. And it's not just they hold these views close to their heart. Like, they both feel very strongly about pacifism and violence.
What do you think? Where do you stand?
Oh, I'm completely with Yarovsky on this. I think it's a no-brainer. I think pacifism to that extent is insane. And I'd gladly...
Wow, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Yarovsky gives the example of Gandhi. His solution to how the Nazis were treating the Jews was just for the Jews to take it and show how peaceful they can be. That's an example of insane pacifism.
Yeah. Okay. So, how far do you think that animal rights activists should go with regard to standing up and fighting for the animals?
Yeah, so I think that question has two dimensions, because if we lived in a world where violence would actually lead to substantive change, then I would say anything is justified to end a Holocaust. Just how anything was justified to end the Jewish Holocaust or to end slavery We went to war to ensure justice happens. In the situation we're in now, I don't think our movement is ready for that type of action to lead to change. So I would say no, but there will come a point, or there may come a point, where it is necessary, and I would support that. But I would say not right now, because you get labeled a terrorist, because it's not a mainstream view. Now it's just about educating as many people as possible so that that change is achievable, hopefully without violence.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. There's just not enough of us who care enough. One of the things I saw a study recently, and I'm trying to remember where I saw it, and it was basically asking people about what you're trying to identify what kind of activism we should be doing in order to get the best results. And they did all these surveys, and essentially there's nothing you can do with it ended up seeming like, you could stand there and give out pamphlets, or you can scream in the streets, and either way, animal rights activists are going to be not liked because they make people feel guilty. So there was almost no solution to that. I have to read that again, but do you get that feeling that that's true?
It depends on what the survey or research study was trying to show. If they're trying to show that you're going to be disliked for an unpopular opinion, that's kind of just obvious. But if they're showing that no change has happened since the animal rights movement, I would strongly disagree, because I think there has been change in different areas. And if we're looking at another study I saw a couple of years ago, but still quite new, about what made people vegan, Yorovsky's speech was definitely up there, and really the Banana Girl was not far behind. And then there was other popular kind of YouTubers and activists. So it depends on what that research study was actually saying.
Yeah, and it also depends on how, if you could just get people to watch those videos and watch the Gary Yorovskys of the world. And part of the reason that I ended up on TikTok doing what I'm doing is because I had seen Wayne Shung's speech where he was talking about the science of social change, and they said basically just do whatever you can to get people to notice the issue. And that's still what I'm doing over on TikTok. But however, right now in 2023, there are so many limitations about what we can say. I literally have gotten videos banned just for asking questions. Like, they call it bullying, just for asking people a question. It's like, I've tested it. It's quite something. So my approach over the last while has had to change on TikTok. I can't have as much fun. I can't be as crazy. Because everything is hateful and everything is harassment nowadays. So it's really
insane. Like, it is. Can I swear on this or not?
Sorry?
Am I allowed to swear on this podcast or not?
Are you allowed to what?
Swear.
Yeah, I don't care.
It's fucked. Like, the censorship that you've been facing and a lot of other people have been facing is completely fucked up and wrong. I don't know if you're using Twitter a lot, but Elon Musk is making an effort to make that platform less censored, which I think for someone like you in the long term is really worth investing in.
I definitely have to do that. I just find that during the day I'm sort of all over the place myself. Like, I'm just trying to, I have my hands dipped in so many things, like between trying to just communicate normally and then still confusing, with whoever, whatever. I'm also trying to still write little songs. I have a whole bunch of them on Spotify that I use as commercials. And I just feel like I'm just kind of doing whatever, because I don't know what works. For example, right now I have a video over on TikTok that has 3.7 million views.
Yeah.
And it's just me. It's a 1-minute video. And I'm trying to deconstruct why it is that it went viral like that. And it was, I don't understand why that one, you know what I mean? Whereas the other ones were, to me, similar. But in this one, I was basically just sitting at the kitchen table, and somebody had been recently found, there's a video going around that somebody blended a cat, put a cat in a blender apparently, and somebody put it in a microwave. And a lot of people saw those videos, and I didn't. I have no need to, but people were tagging me a lot on TikTok and saying, did you see the video of that? And so I was sitting there at the kitchen table, and I had on a shirt that said, vegan means love. And I had on sort of a jacket like this. Anyway, I don't know if it was the lighting. I don't know if it was the way that I presented myself, but I just sat there at first for a long time and didn't say anything and just looked at the comment. And then I said to the person, like, why are you sending me this? Like, why are you telling me this? Like, basically, what did you do about it? Like, you don't think I know that people are cruel to animals? Like, that's why I'm vegan. And I said, I'm guilty myself. I ate, and then I started labeling all the animals. You know, I've eaten chickens. I've eaten cows. I've eaten pigs. I've paid people to murder animals on my behalf. So my husband has this theory that he says that people just love to see you confessing. But it's like, not confessing. Everyone knows that I've only been vegan for not even like on June 27th, 2023, it will be 7 years. So, but it's just people reacting very interestingly, and it has a lot of likes and a lot of shares, and people are saying, well, she has a good point. Oh, for the first time, I like her. Or this is the only thing she's ever said that I agree with. And it's like, what? Like, I'm just saying the same thing all the time. It's just, there's something about the delivery, the timing, like, so we really never know what's going to work and what isn't. That's why, you know, try sort of everything.
Try everything. And I think you are lucky in that you seem to have certain traits that would really help with going viral. Your message is simple, you're a clear communicator, and you pick topical things that have like with the cruelty to the cats matter. So I think that even though you don't know exactly when it's going to happen, I think just the sheer fact that you possess such traits is going to increase the likelihood of it happening. And that's not the first of your videos that have gone viral. You've had celebrities like Russell Brand and Gordon Ramsay respond to you. This literally doesn't happen to anyone else, especially with those two distinct people. They'll only respond to certain people, you know. Especially the one with Russell Brand, his response wasn't bad. It was like a pretty level-headed overview.
Yeah, Russell Brand is somebody who himself is vegan, and my follow-up, which I don't even know if he saw, but I basically just said, look, why the fuck aren't you talking about veganism more? Like, I don't, but I get it. You know, people want to have a living. They want to be able to pay for their house and their food and their clothing, and they want to be able to travel places. So they have to limit it and be really contained. For me, I don't need anything fancy in my life. All my clothes are pretty much secondhand. I don't care if I eat at a fancy restaurant. I don't need to travel per se. I have a small house, you know, I don't have anything to lose. So I feel like it's my responsibility, my duty to be as bold as I can, because other people can't, because they'll get fired.
Yeah.
Or they'll, you know, I mean, but it's still very difficult because of course like just today, for the first time, I was recognized here in Italy by a young person. I actually because we don't know people here, but we know people who know people anyway. So, you know, in our little area here in Italy, where we've been here a month, we've been going to the local Catholic church. And I'm not in the least bit religious, but I like to go because I like to observe people and see how morally consistent they are. What are they eating? What are they doing? And what are they saying? And yeah, afterwards, a little guy came up to me, and he was exactly the age of kids who know me. And he came up with his phone, and he's going, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what he said in Italian, but he said, TikTok? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, oh shit, like, that's not good. Because, you know, like, people who see me on social media are going to very quickly see how much hate I get and how out there I am with my opinion. And they know, they're going to know that I'm not happy with their behavior, you know, just so
I think that's great that you're doing that though. Like, you don't preach to the choir, and that's one of the things I really respect about you, because you see some other activists and other people, and they reach a certain audience level and they kind of start creating echo chambers, and it's not clear to me they're reaching a new audience. But with you, I know you always are, because I don't know it might have been someone completely retarded like Andrew Tate or something, but he says you want at least 60% fans and 40% hate or something like that, because that's how you know you're growing as a person and you're growing your audience. So I personally think it's a really good thing. I've been following you for a while now, and I occasionally will check out your comments, and there's definitely been an evolution from a lot of vitriol and hatred to something closer to balance now. It still could be more love, but I don't think you want too much love as an activist. The whole point is you're challenging people.
Yeah, if I get too much love, I know I'm doing something wrong, because it means I'm just speaking to the choir. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
what I like though is, if there's any vegans watching, is what I appreciate very much is people who do educate in my comment section. It's not about, telling me how great I am, but it's about just give people the facts, because there's so much miseducation, like really unbelievable amounts of people that just don't know, even adults, just that they think that, for example, cows always give milk. They don't have to be pregnant first. They think there's some different kind of mammal from the rest, and they don't understand about the baby boy cows being ripped away from the moms and murdered because they won't be able to give milk, or they don't understand about the egg industry and how the baby chicks are taken away and macerated because they'll never grow up to be roosters, and all of these sort of things that you and I and vegans take for granted. After a while, people stop repeating them. I've noticed that, like, vegans just stop even saying it, because they just figure, okay, by now everyone must know because I've said it 100 times. Like, no, I mean, you have to repeat and repeat. And I think that's part of why I actually lose some audience members, let's say on YouTube, because after a while, the people that know me and that are vegan are just like, okay, I've heard her message a million times. Like, let's move on, but I always have new kids that who are saying, well, what is vegan mean? And what's the difference between vegan and vegetarian? Like, I get that question, I don't even know how many times a day. And I know that they just really don't know. So I keep repeating myself and trying to do it in different ways so that I don't get bored out of my mind. But it's like teaching anything, any subject in school. When you're a school teacher, you repeat the same thing over and over. Whether you're a math teacher, you repeat every year, and then students miss class, they're sick, so you got to repeat it again. Or that's essentially all it really is. Like, a big part of that.
It's a real challenge as well. It's one of the reasons I struggle to do something like YouTube consistently, because I hate repeating myself, and I know how important it is, but the level of enjoyment I get from it is so low. That's why I sort of struggle to maintain it. But I really admire anyone that can, find interesting and new ways to do that.
I missed a word. The level of what you get from it?
Enjoyment.
Oh, enjoyment, right. Yes, I know. Me too. I know. It's just, whew. But anyway, what can you do? So let's just look at a bit more about what you were talking about there. We said that we would maybe talk about, so theory building, important for animals, and what's your PhD about?
Yeah. I'll just finish up with the theory building things. We got totally carried away with Francione and Jurowski, and then it just led to a completely different.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I go all over the place.
That's fine. It's an interesting dynamic going on there, and I don't feel like I shouldn't say it. They've both been pretty public about it over the years, so whatever. So Francione comes up with this theory. I don't even know if you call it a theory. It's his argument to abolish the property status of animals, so that they can become persons, that can have legal status under law. So that's an example of why something like that's important, because it shows how the law is and isn't working. So my theory is to come up with a constitutional legal theory for animals. So describe actually how the state can carry out duties towards animals. And in doing that, I can show that they're currently not in violation of what they're supposed to be doing towards the members in the community, of which I think animals are a part of. So that's basically what my PhD is on as well. It's just basically developing a constitutional legal theory for animals. The most simple way I can say it is, I don't know how across American history you are, but basically before they signed things like the Declaration of Independence and came up with the US Constitution, there were theories from thinkers that went into that. So I kind of see myself not exactly like them, but coming up with this theory. So one day when suits are sitting around a table thinking of how to write a constitution or something similar for animals, outlining duties from the state and what we owe them, maybe my work might contribute to that.
Okay, that's very cool. All right, let's see what else. And about your PhD and why you chose the subject, or what pushes humanity forward, or other things that we said we might try to talk about.
What was the first one? What pushes humanity forward?
And did you want to say anything else about your PhD, or the next one was, I was going to ask you about what sorts of things pushes humanity forward?
I think war and violence is definitely one, but that's more on a broader scale. but I think violence does lead to big change. So after the Nazis, for example, the UN was established and there was a real focus on human rights and individual kind of rights. So I think a lot of the time something horrible has to happen for something very good to happen. So violence is one, and I think proper education, like what you're doing and what a few other individuals in our society are doing, pushes the world forward as well in different areas. Because I've kind of lost faith a lot in our traditional institutions. I just think they've been really polluted with woke agenda. I don't know, all these different things, and it's become very polarized as well because of social media. So I think it's really important to build everything from the ground up, basically.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you mentioned it a couple of times when you say woke agenda, just for people who might not understand, and specifically what your views are. Like, what do you think is the problem with the woke these days? What is about the woke agenda? Do you feel like, I mean, I've said it myself that, you know, I consider myself to be like a hippie back in the day, like, you know, love, peace, and
Yeah.
not that I did any of the drugs, I didn't, but just that kind of mentality. You know, you just talk to people nicely and then they'll understand and they'll be good. And then gradually over time realizing, like, especially in the last several years, that things have just gotten so crazy. I mean, I've said things like, to come out of the closet as a vegan is much more difficult than coming out of the closet as a member of the LGBTQ. And people freak out. And they just can't believe I'm saying that. But I back it up with all kinds of facts as I see it, which is that you come out as LGBTQ, and the vast majority of times in any, you know, civilized country, which let's use that term loosely, but let's say Canada, Australia, United States, you know, Europe in general, you come out and people are like, okay, whatever. Like, they don't really care. They don't bother you. I mean, and so, but you come out as a vegan and your entire family will look at you like, oh, why the hell do you want to do that? And now you're going to ruin Thanksgiving, and now you're going to ruin Christmas, and this better be a phase, and you eat your meat or else you're kicked out of the house. Like, it's really bad. And teachers that are vegan phobic, and so that's why I'm writing this book about vegan phobia, giving all different kinds of examples of vegan phobic nurses, vegan phobic teachers, vegan phobic doctors, vegan phobic bosses, vegan phobic cousins, aunts, uncles. Like, I'm going to talk about all of it.
Yeah. I agree with everything you just said. I saw a meme recently, Elon Musk, I believe, shared it, that said, if corporations are advertising your slogan or your movement, it's not a real movement. So my first issue with the woke agenda is that I don't hold it to be true a lot of the time. So baseline, that's my first issue with it. It's mostly lies at this stage. And second of all, even if it was true, I don't think it justifies how it's manifested itself. So it's stopping people from having free speech. It's oppressive. It's seeing the world through a lens of victims and oppressors when the world is not that simple. So those are my main issues with the woke agenda, and it's affecting important movements like the animal rights movement. If people are saying you're white and you can't say this, this lineup has too many males, we need to have, you know, more diversity. It's taking away from the merit of what people bring to the table and looking at physical attributes. There's nothing good to it. I can't see any, you know, racial justice, things like this were relevant maybe 20 years ago, but it's not in our Western society now. We all have a free go.
Yeah, and one of the things that I say to these groups, and I never intended to be this kind of a person and talk to people this way, but it's just like the only way I could think of to get their attention is just like, like if you are against oppression, like, why the fuck are you literally eating the corpse of someone while you're crying about how you can't go into the women's washroom, like, oh, poor me, and you're eating it, like, and that in itself shows you how disingenuous the movement is, because if they really care about oppression, they'll care about the persons. Animals are persons, on my view, at the bottom, and that's non-human animals that have absolutely no rights. So that alone tells you that they don't actually care about oppression. So I go a little bit easier on people that are more leftist and intersectional if they're vegan and not completely crazy, but the majority of people are not, and if they become vegan, it's usually just to be consistent or so they don't get caught out. But yeah, it's impacted our society in serious ways. I think it's completely undermined democracy in a lot of manners as well.
So
Yeah.
I can talk about it for ages. Like, it depends how deep you want to go on that.
Yeah. Patricia, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 33. I have to think about that.
Yeah. So you're exactly my daughter's age, who is also a lawyer. And yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people from your generation who really are very left thinking. And yeah, I don't know. It's almost like, I mean, actually, you know what? I'm not gonna.
Just say it. You can edit it out later. Say it.
I know. I edit it out later. No, just to say that, you know, it's refreshing to see that people they're still sane in the world. Like I said, I used to think of myself as the left, and then now it's just like the left has gone they're so piled over there on the left, and they're so insane that I find myself more thinking like the right wing people did, which seems so crazy to me, because I really didn't, you know, think that I was with them. But it's not always the case, of course, because there's the Candace Owens of the world and the Jordan Petersons and the Sam Harrises and all these people who should be vegan. I mean, Shapiro, all these people. It makes me crazy when I see their ads. They're literally advertising, you know, some meat companies like the Daily Wire is all the time. And then you do have somebody like Russell Brand who is vegan, and he just doesn't say enough. And he has, what, 10 million followers now on YouTube or something like that? It's
that's
such a shame.
Earlier you were saying how wealth and all these things don't matter to you, so you feel more obligated to speak out because you know, it's not like you're not worried about losing anything. But with Russell Brand, I think he's accumulated enough wealth from being him and his movies and his book sales that still doesn't justify it. Like, I can understand more like on a smaller scale, you know, someone with a smaller channel who's kind of making ends meet, but not him. He's literally a millionaire. Like, even if he did advocate for veganism for the rest of his life, he'd still die a millionaire. So it's less of an excuse there, I think.
You mean Russell Brand?
Yeah.
Okay, well then, thank you very much. You're right. I'm gonna give him shit.
You should keep making videos until he responds again. He probably will.
Blast him again, because maybe I should. Because what I say to people, because this is not the first time that I've had this discussion, is that let's say somebody's vegan and they just have other interests in the world. Okay, fine. Talk about the wars, talk about all kinds of other things, wokeism, whatever, but at least have something on your channel. Like, either your name is That Vegan Lawyer, but you're still talking about other things like wokeism or whatever, or your name is, you know, Russell Brand Vegan Interviewer. Like, have the name somewhere. Now, I'm not telling him to change his name. Or he just has, you know, wears a shirt once in a while that says animals are not food. He doesn't even have to talk about it. But he is going to have like a couple million people see his video with this message on it. It will cost him nothing, right? And that's why I just get so angry with so many vegans, because I think they are wimping out. You know, I think we need to be tougher on them and not let them.
Like, even if he didn't change his name, he should just have a couple of. He's such a philosopher and he can articulate himself really well. So he should be making lots of amazing videos about animal rights, the animal rights philosophy, debating people, even debating someone like Candace Owens, who I think is a fucking dumbass. Like, I don't respect her at all. She's got a few good views here and there on race and whatnot, but everything else, I'm just like, I'm so embarrassed for her. But even just debating someone, because he's had her on before and debated Candace Owens on different issues like economics and, you know, social justice, whatever. He could easily do that with animal rights philosophy. I don't think he would get any hatred for it because he's him.
Yeah. All right. So do you want kids?
No, I don't.
Why not? They're so cute. My granddaughter is 3.5. She's so cute.
No, I remember when I was a little kid and people would tell me I would want them when I was older, 15, and then I was 15, I still didn't want them. I was 20, I was 25. I don't absolutely don't want them. But I fully support people having children for reasons that I've given you, which I can get into if you like.
Yeah, let's get into it a bit. Why do you support other people having children? Because the argument is always overpopulation. And anyway, I'll let you.
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons. The first one is we need more people in the world to solve problems, arguably that we've created, but we also need them to come up with solutions and pioneer scientific discoveries and things like that. There's also just the sheer fact that
I'm gonna stop you there for a second. You think we need more people to come up with solutions, knowing, Patricia, that the vast majority of people remain uneducated. So it's not like we need more people. We need just better people.
Well, both, because it needs to. We need more people, but we also need better education. I would agree with that. But if it needs to be looked at in the whole context, because if we keep having less people and other countries with fucked up laws and no democracy and just extreme religions like fundamental Islam keep having people, and it keeps going like this, like those people keep getting higher in the population and we keep getting lower, we'll hit a peak where we're completely outnumbered by them, and we might not have a say in how countries are run and things like that. So that is a real concern for me. If democracy dies, I'm not sure the world would be worth living in for most humans.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just trying
to remember the name. What is the name of the young woman who escaped from North Korea? And Carnism Debunked George just did something about her last name is Park.
Yeonmi Park.
Yeah. Yeah, who talked about living in oppressed North Korea and what it was like, and then, but when asked, said her favorite meal was steak. Like, what a disgusting thing to, like, the cognitive dissonance, I don't get. That's her way, apparently. For those of you just watching who don't know, she's, I don't know how old she is, maybe your age?
I'm not sure. I think, she's in her early 30s, mid-30s.
Yeah, who escaped from North Korea with her mom and wrote a book about it and talked about how incredibly oppressive it was there. And she says that she thinks that humans have less rights than animals. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And then these people are never enter debates. Like, just put her up there with George. Yeah. Somebody let her try to defend that. It's horrible. And then saying, well, every time I eat a steak, it's like I'm sticking it to our what's the guy's name? Young Chung, I forget the guy's name. Leader of North Korea. Every time I eat a steak, it's like I'm sticking it to him. How is this? This is the logic of a 12-year-old. It doesn't make sense. It's like saying, Patricia, every time you talk about eating animals, I'm going to eat twice as many to spite you. Like,
she definitely doesn't see animals as individuals. She definitely doesn't see that. Well, maybe she does see that they're sentient, but I think she's still got her blinders on.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, I would be more judgmental if it was clear that someone had educated her, or she'd at least been exposed to the type of ideology she currently has. But I do find it strange that someone can have been so oppressed and not see that in other individuals, whether they're human or not. I think it is strange.
Right. And I just saw actually George's talk about her. He sent it to me in a private message and I just saw it. It's very short. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, Carnism Debunked, go to George Martin's video and listen. And my frustration with George is that I love him, first of all. I think he's great, but he's not tough enough. Like, his video is it's so nice. It's so mature. It is so perfect. It is so logical that nobody is watching it. Like, he has to slam his fists down and do something dramatic. Like, I know it sucks. I don't particularly want to be that person to do that, But this is why his channel has 3,000 subscribers, and it should have 30 million subscribers, because everything that comes out of his mouth is makes sense so far that I've heard, anyway.
Does he go tough? I haven't watched videos in a while. Does he go tougher on people that are obviously educated and refuse to change? I thought that would more be his approach. Or is he sort of nice to everybody?
I think over on Instagram, he's kind of, he's like, he says things that like he'll be sarcastic and say what he thinks. But with somebody like her, he says, I'm sure you have a, what did he say? I'm sure you're a good-hearted person and you just need to be educated a bit. Sort of more like what you were saying, and like if I review his video on my channel, I'll just be giving him shit because I'll say I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. This is what I do, right? I turn my camera on and I think, okay, what is my approach? What is going to be the best for the animals? I mean, what I'd like to do is sit there and go, good point, George. Great point. Love you, George, 100%. And that's it, right? But if I sit there and agree with George, all of the people who eat meat are not going to be amused or give a shit or care or watch the video. But if I attack him, and I'll warn him in advance, I'll say, George, I'm really sorry, but I might have to attack you. He'll be like, whatever, do whatever you have to do. And I'll be like, George Martin is a loser. I mean, look at this carnism debunk. He's like saying, oh, she has a kind heart. What fucking bullshit is this? This woman should know better. She's been oppressed. She should know better. What is this bullshit answer about I'm eating a steak? Why don't you just say you're eating a cat, which is probably what she did eat up there. I don't know. Like a dog. Like what is, I don't know.
It'd be really funny if you called him. It would be really funny if you called him a pussy. Like I think that would be hilarious. Like, it would be so funny if you use that word.
It hurts to do it, right? Because these people are they're great. There's so many great animal rights activists out there. So I don't know. Sometimes I just wing it because I don't know what I'm doing. I just want to, because you could see both sides, right? On the one hand, I want him to be more tough with people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the problem. We don't have enough of us who are just yelling at them. And I know this is also the difficult part is I'm also studying Stoicism, which is all about being calm, not overreacting, and being mature. But as an animal rights activist, like you get nowhere. Nobody will watch your videos. Nobody will care. And nothing changes. So the way that I've gotten people to watch me is just by really just yelling at them. Like what's interesting is there was a video I did a couple of years ago when I had my main TikTok account, and some kid wrote, but I didn't know it was a kid at the time. Apparently someone said it was a kid, but somebody said, but I don't like vegetables, right? And I just said in a 15-second video, just held up my camera like this and said, I don't give a rat's ass if you don't like vegetables. No offense to the rats. Eat your fucking vegetables and shut up, right? And like millions and millions of people saw that video. And then everyone's like, she's so mean, right? But it's like, because like I could have reacted and said, well, you might not like vegetables, but there's a lot of other vegetables. Maybe do you like carrots and dip? Like I could have reacted like that. And sometimes I do now because I don't know what works. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty obvious the controversial, funny, angry kind of approach works a lot of the time. And you can even see that in who has become popular in the animal rights scene. Someone like Vegan Gains, even Freely in her older kind of videos. So I think that Gary Yourofsky we were talking about earlier. So I think there's definitely evidence to show that approach is effective in reaching a larger amount of people. And that study I can send you the study afterwards showing the reasons why people went vegan, and it is attributed to the loudest but smart activists. I don't contest that at all, and I agree more people should do it.
So what about you personally, and what are you learning these days? What's something new and interesting that you've learned recently?
I learned a lot of new and interesting things. Do you want an academic example, something financial, something more day-to-day basis?
Yeah, how about one of each?
One of each. Okay. So the academic ones I know are just so densely academic. I think I would just put everyone to sleep. I can give it a go, but I think you're just going to say what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay, well, just try and think of it. Remember I was telling you about Toastmasters? Toastmasters International, you should check it out because they teach you, like they literally, what's great about that club is that they have lights, like they have actual lights and car, like, so they'll warn you when your time's up. If you go over time, you're disqualified. And they have this thing called table topics, and you have to make your point within 1 or 2 minutes, or you're just literally like the mic, they turn the mic off type thing, that's it. So try if you can with what you're learning academically to explain something like in a way that us dummies will understand.
Dummies, it's just this topic hardly anyone cares about, probably because they're smart. Basically, there's two ideas in the philosophy of law. One is that in order for law to be legitimate, it has to be moral. The other is that law doesn't have to be moral, it just needs to be enforced and executed. So that's a big debate that happens in this area of law called jurisprudence. And recently I had quite a long conversation with my friend Isaac. He's got a debating channel called Ask Yourself. And we discovered that this debate is actually a purely semantical one, in that there's no real proposition being contested or in dispute. What they're really debating is just the meaning of the word law. How's that?
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because there are laws in the books that you have to follow. It clearly says like you went through a red light or whatever. And then there's rational thinking where like this has happened to me. Okay, I believe that laws are made for regular people to follow and for independent thinkers to use as guidelines. Like I was at a red light one time, and I'm an environmentalist. It was I was going to work on a Sunday and a morning. It was nobody there. I was at a red light. Nobody's coming, and I just thought, screw it, I'm going, because my engine is idling here for nothing. What's great about Italy, they have these roundabouts. I don't know if you guys have those a lot in Australia, but we don't have them in Canada or Montreal.
A lot.
You have them?
Yeah.
They're great because there's nobody stopping. You're just kind of, using your judgment and going. And so anyway, so that's, there's law and then there's moral law kind of thing.
A bit of a divergent. This debate more is related to something like the question, was Hitler's dictates law? So when Hitler commands something, is that law? So the one group of people, they're known as natural law theorists. They would say, no, it's not, because what he's doing is so immoral, it can't be considered law. And the other group would say, no, it's completely immoral, we agree, but it's still law because it's executed in a certain way. So kind of related to what you were saying, but not exactly.
Okay. And what about the other examples you were going to give, like finances or something?
Okay, yes. So I'm learning a lot about trading and Forex and crypto and stocks at the moment. And I'm just learning about how much human psychology is in all that. When you're reading the stock markets, you're literally reading people's psychology and how stressed they are, how happy they are. And a lot of it is basic human emotions. So that's something I didn't know of before, because before I got into stocks or whatever, I just thought it's lines and it's here they're having a high period, here they're having a low period, and that's it. But when you actually get down to the detail, you're reading a lot about human psychology in the market. So that was fascinating.
Yeah, and what's so crazy about it is they say like, oh, something's going to happen, something happens in society. Oh my God, the stock market's going to crash. Everybody's going to get scared and not buy stocks or whatever. And then, oh, there we go again. And, my dad was a stockbroker, and definitely there was a lot of moodiness with what I could always tell whether the stocks were up or down, depending on when I walked into the kitchen, the way that he acted. I mean, that's just from his perspective. But I understand what you're saying in terms of people, but of course he was also investing. He was a stockbroker and investing. And I mean, it's crazy that, because what I don't understand is that if everybody who has stocks knows that it's like that, why don't they just wait it out? And that's what a lot of people say to do, right? Don't panic, don't sell, just wait. Be fine.
Yeah, but it's easier said than done, because if you're about to lose 10, 20, 50 grand, you kind of want to pull out before that happens, instead of waiting and then it never goes back up and then you're liquidated. So it's an interesting game. Yeah,
it is. And was there a third category you wanted to talk about? I feel like there was something else.
I was trying to think of like
personal. It was personally, I think you wanted to talk about something you've learned just from a personal perspective, or maybe about relationships or something like that, or how you handle things with professors, or did you learn anything? Oh, I know what you were telling me before. We were talking about you were personally trying to work with your language, and we talked about Toastmasters with regard to that.
Yes.
And not saying
Okay,
and
that's
like
fine.
because like it was like, oh my god, it was like, oh
I hate it.
wow, like I just can't.
I don't mind using that type of dialect or language if I'm in a personal conversation and it's not being recorded, and I'm, you know, when you're just really stressed to say something and the lights just come out, I was just like, yeah, I know that, you know, just trying to explain it, that's fine. But when
It's
yeah,
fine.
not when I'm doing like an interview or like or a podcast. And this was mainly
no, but in that case, your like was okay, not an into or not like a podcast. Oh no, I guess you no, you're right. We didn't
it's
need
a gray area. It's a gray area, that one. We'll just
right.
But I've never enjoyed hearing that. But I think it became really clear when I was watching clips from the Whatever podcast. I don't know if you've heard of this podcast before.
Yeah.
I don't watch it very often. I only watched it when one of their clips went viral because some Christian guy said that he would rather sleep with the oldest woman in the world rather than the hottest trans woman in the world, because then he wouldn't be gay. That's what he said when he was asked the question, and it just blew up. This girl stormed off, and it was a shit show. Basically, it's a slightly classier version of Jerry Springer. That's how I would describe that Whatever podcast. But they mainly talk about dating, relationships, modern society, and things like that. But I noticed nearly all the women they had on there were fucking dumbasses, for one. And I think I told you the Christians were the smartest, which shows you how far we've come in our society. But the way they spoke, it was just like this, and everything was just like, I saw this guy and he ghosted me, and then like this happened, and then like, it was, yeah. After that, I said I need to take
there was a phase too where everyone was talking in this way that everything was like a question. So no matter what you said, it was always like as if you were saying a question, but you weren't really saying a question. Like that, you kind of know like what I mean? Because now I'm asking, do you know what I mean? Now it's a question. But now
it was very interesting kind of.
And then that sort of disappeared. And this is why this whole wokeism thing it seems like at any moment it's going to disappear, like, because it just seems so over the top. But I'm seeing more and more people coming out and saying, okay, like for the first, I just said like, we give ourselves permission to say it when we feel like it. Okay,
we can say it. I don't want to say it all the time.
I was at a new doctor about a year ago when I was in Montreal, and somebody said, what is your pronoun? For the first time in an official capacity. And I just looked at her and go, Katie? Or just call me Katie. Like, just keep repeating that. That's my pronoun.
Yeah, like, I know.
What?
I told you I'm going to this conference in LA in a couple of months, and when I was filling out the application, you had to disclose your pronouns, and I just left a note saying I don't want to do this. Yeah, there's nothing else we can really do. It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when I was on TikTok, I remember there was people doing the pronoun thing, and somebody had convinced me. This is where I actually wrote down my pronoun. I wrote pronouns, she, her, she. And because somebody convinced me and said, well, look, you're just showing that you're an ally with them. It's not a big deal. Go ahead and do it. And I was like, okay. So I did it. But then I thought about it after a couple of months, and I thought, I don't think I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
It's just such a tiny minority of the population. And you know, just to be clear, if somebody wants to get an operation and do whatever they want, it really is their body and their choice. It's true. But, you know, maybe I'll tell you a little story about something that happened at an animal rights. I should do a little separate video about this, but there was an animal rights conference that I went to about 4 years ago or something. And, you know, it's a conference, and it was in Virginia, and we sit there for 3 days listening to workshops, and you're taking notes, and you're paying attention and asking questions and learning. And then at the end, there's the big gala, and it's everybody's sitting there, and it's dining tables and everything. And then the music started. Finally, you know, you're sitting there eating with everybody, and you've been sitting for days, and I can't sit still. I want to dance. I want to dance. We're having a party. It's the end of the conference. So the music comes on and I'm like, oh, thank God we're going to dance. And I go to stand up and I realize, wait, no, it's a drag show. It was somebody came out with a microphone. Person was apparently vegan, but was singing and doing their thing. And everyone was throwing money. And I was like, okay, like, all right. But then it never ended. It just kept going on. And we never danced. We just watched this person. And I thought to myself, if that was a woman, I would feel the exact same. It has nothing to do with whether a woman or a man. I don't want to see somebody in 20 pounds of makeup, fake hair, fake nails, heels this high, glitter and gold and fake boobs. Like, I just don't even want to see a woman like that. Like, it's not entertainment for me. It's just so the opposite of what I enjoy. And that's when I sort of looked around and I realized everybody kind of was like, nobody was wanting to say, hey, you know, maybe we don't all like this.
Yeah.
But you're called transphobic if you do that. And I don't think it's about that. It's just.
What's qualifying as transphobic these days is getting a bit out of hand. It's hard to judge a lot of these issues because I know a lot of it is so blown up, and from both the left and the right, they'll share very polarizing content. So it's hard to know what exactly is happening. But some of the things I'm seeing, like recently I saw that someone was trying to pass a bill in Canada, making it criminalizing someone saying that a man couldn't be a woman if they were 100 meters from a drag show.
Yeah.
$25,000. I don't know. Like, it's not going to get passed. I know that. But the fact that someone sat there and drafted this bill, which takes a long time to draft a bill, is insane enough.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
I used to think there was a show on TV. I can't remember. It was a law show or something. I think it was maybe called Ally McBeal.
I remember. Yeah.
And I think they had at the place of work just like one washroom for everybody. And I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. What's wrong with that? I thought to myself, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I still feel that way for the most part, but I mean, sometimes you go to the washroom, you're by yourself, and you know, you could see how you could be uncomfortable. If it's different if it's in the workplace and you know that there's always people around in case there's trouble. But so I don't know how I feel about it. How do you feel about that?
Oh, it depends which issue, like the bathroom debate, or.
Yeah, let's say, like, how do you feel? Do you think that the solution would be to just have every single bathroom gender neutral and just have stalls? You have to pee and poo, you go in the stall. I mean, no more standing up and peeing in front of the thing because now there's women in there, right? And those urinal things, just everyone goes into a stall. You come out, you wash your hands at the end of it. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think we should be serving a tiny minority of people if these two categories of sex work in most places in society. So with bathrooms, usually, you know, it works that there are men and women. I think a lot of these kind of situations, it does boil down to how you look. So I wouldn't expect someone like Blair White. She's a YouTuber. She's trans and she's more on the side. Yeah. I thought you would.
By the way, apparently she was vegan for a while and now isn't. And there's no real good reason. She just didn't feel like it anymore. Like,
it's just a flake. She's obviously very into herself. She's, you know, I wouldn't count on someone like that to have ethics when it comes to animals. But to illustrate this point, I wouldn't expect someone like her to use the male bathroom. So I think in a lot of situations, I know this is a bit controversial to say, but it does come down to appearance. And she was having
I agree with you. I tend to agree with you. It's like if you feel like you can't even tell the difference, then it's
what's the point of
like nobody would ever call Blair White a him, right?
No. And that was her argument to Shapiro when I watched this short debate they had a couple of years ago, and she said, my argument is not based on the fact that I think I'm scientifically a woman. My argument's based on practicalities. I look so much like a woman where if we were having dinner, it's easier to just say, can you please find her a table, rather than explain the whole situation, which the waiter does not give a fuck about. And Ben was like, oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So, but it's just not superficial, because even something like sports, the physiques doesn't matter.
Yeah. So what do you think about the swimmer who won the medal and
This
who
is
was
Leah Thomas or something. Leah Thomas.
Yeah, I forget the name. Yeah. That yes. No, Leah. No, that's the person who was. Wait, was that the person who was fighting against it? I forget. But anyway, what do you think about that? Sorry?
If it's the person I'm thinking of, the swimmer.
Yeah, the swimmer who won the race.
Because he looks massive, or she, whatever. So I think that's probably pretty, like, I don't know the full details, but if it's the person I'm thinking of, I'm not sure they should be competing on the women's team, but I'm
100% sure they shouldn't. It's just the same way when I heard of the example of boxers and how boxers are put into weight categories. If you're not going to get some small guy who weighs 155 pounds to fight somebody who's 255 pounds and they think this is going to be fair, it's not. You're going to go according to what body type they have. And so the categories right now are, there's in the Olympics, there's men and there's women. So if a man just comes over to be in women's category, of course he is going to win.
Yeah.
Just bigger.
Yeah.
Longer wingspan, like longer legs, bigger feet. To me, it's a no-brainer. I don't know how things went that far that was allowed.
A lot of trans people hold this. I think a lot of them are very rational, and I watched this I think it was on ABC, which is a Australian channel here that does these kind of stories, and they interviewed a bunch of different trans people and former athletes, and a lot of them have the same view that we have, which is why I don't always trust what's blown up on media, because I think a lot of these people are just like you and me, and they have, you know, reasonably sane opinions. So yeah, with the trans thing, can they just have a new category of trans people? It seems like a logical answer.
Yeah, like they have Special Olympics. You can have another category of Special Olympics, Trans Olympics. Yeah,
or something like that. That seems to would have solved a lot of problems. It also depends how many trans athletes they are, though, because if there's like 5, you know,
like all we need now is just for a male basketball player to be trans and go and play in the women's league and be like this much taller than everyone else and see how that goes over. I don't think they're going to be too happy.
Yeah, I listened to Sam did a podcast interviewing.
Let's clarify who Sam is, because you talk as if he's your husband and you're on a first name basis, and everyone knows Sam.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so Sam Harris.
He's a
you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
Sorry, but I'll just say. Okay, so I know Patricia, and she's talking about Sam Harris, who is somebody who is what would you call him? A philosopher? He's a writer. He's an author. But he's not vegan. But anyway, I have a copy of his book, and we were reading it here in Italy in a particular coffee shop. I was reading passages out loud to my husband, and he was reading out loud to me. We never made it through it because honestly, I just kind of lost a bit of interest. I didn't find it was flowing, and it was a bit boring. But sorry, that not saying anything against him except that he's not vegan. But so we call the cafe. We say now that we need the name of the cafe. We say, well, do you want to go to the Sam Harris Cafe? And we both know exactly what we mean. I thought it would be so funny if he ever heard that story.
Maybe we should do a song about him.
Sam Harris. What rhymes with Harris? Nothing. So that's hard. As a songwriter, that's where you sort of have to start twisting the words.
It's hard to rhyme.
Nothing much rhymes with vegan either, except Steven. See, it would be great if his name was Steven.
Steven Harris.
Or Sam Steven. Sam Steven, you should be vegan. Sam Steven, you should be vegan. Sam Harris, you should be
vegan.
Nothing. Harris. There's not a vegetable, a fruit, nut, or seed that rhymes with Harris.
I've heard people call him Ham Saris, but I don't think that helps the situation.
Okay. Anyway, you were saying about Sam.
So Sam Harris, the neuroscientist, podcaster, writer, he recently interviewed the woman who is doing a podcast series on J.K. Rowling and all the shit that she's been through, speaking out against some of the trans issues that we've touched on. So she's been considered quite
And
controversial.
J.K. Rowling being the author of the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, the Harry Potter.
People don't know. Not everybody knows everything. Oh, okay.
Surely they know who J.K. Rowling is. I reckon a 5-year-old would. Any 5-year-old I picked up from the, like, if I found one down or something. I reckon even a 5-year-old.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, because you're just name dropping with people like Sam, and anyway, go ahead. What about?
Well, he interviewed this woman who's doing a podcast series on the Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling, and so it was interesting to get some of her thoughts on what J.K. Rowling is going through. But Sam Harris also made the point that he hasn't spoken out about this yet because the whole trans community or certain sections of it just seems so vicious that he's just like, I'm just not sure it's the type of experience I want to have, which is kind of how I felt as well. Like, I think it's an interesting issue. It's a little bit blown up. It's a little bit like saturated and covered too much, but that's kind of how I feel too. Like, things just seem so polarized and vicious in certain sections of that community. It's kind of like, do I want to have this experience of making a video or making a critique and then, copying all this stuff about copying a lot of shit over a topic I don't particularly, really, really care about. So.
Right. Because we care more about animal rights because they're truly the biggest victims on the planet, suffering immeasurable amounts of pain, emotional pain every day and physical pain every day of their entire lives. And there's no end in sight. And the pain is created by people who consider themselves to be good. And that's another one thing that I say on my channel. I have a song that people really don't like. Well, first of all, we say vegans do not think that they are better than anyone else, and that is why they're vegan. They don't believe in speciesism, being racist. That's another thing I started saying that people think is weird, but I started saying, don't be racist towards the animals. People are like, what? But how else do you get it into their heads? This is something I came up with. And then I came up with this idea that you were born vegan. Just go back to your roots. Everyone was born a good person. So I say you were born vegan. And I say that because the LGBTQ community says they were born vegan. No, sorry, they were born like gay or whatever, right? I happen to be born bisexual. I've just always been attracted to whoever was my best, closest friend. So I'm gonna, so that's how that worked. But yeah, I say that I started to try to get somebody's attention. I sang this song that says, vegans are better than you, that's just a fact. They don't pay for murder, that's just how they choose to act. Yeah, vegans are better than you. You gotta face it, 'cause it's true. And people hate that. Oh, they get so angry. Oh, who does she think she is? She's so much better. But when I say the opposite, it doesn't get any attention, right?
Yeah. I think it's more factual to say we're better because we're not funding murder. It's very uncontroversial. I would just say that matter of factly. Because people ask me that and I just say yes because of this. There. Like, you don't support rape, you're better than the person who does support rape.
Yeah, it's true. In fact, that silly song is factual.
Yeah, I like it. It's got a nice rhythm to it as well. But I think that is a very underexplored argument and not talked about seriously because this whole idea that you just touched on is drilled into our heads that we don't think we're better than anyone. That's why we're vegan. I don't see that true in any kind of way. I think there's a range of reasons to be better than someone else. Even outside veganism, you might be better for another reason. But yeah, I think overall vegans are generally better people who live better lives. And you can see that a lot in their happiness levels, in their sense of purpose. If you want to compare things like money, you can still make a lot of money it doesn't really affect that. And on top of that, you have a good moral grounding, which is so important. So I wrote an essay on this recently on Substack and linked it back to virtue ethics because virtue ethics is a branch of philosophy. So you know how there's things like deontology, utilitarianism. I probably won't get to them here because it's basically just a philosophy of how you should be living. And virtue ethics says that you should be fostering virtuous traits like courage, justice, virtue, not sappy fucking shit like kindness and being gentle to everyone. It's more about like justice and courage and just living your life according to principles. And I think if you're doing that, that objectively makes you a better person.
Yeah, I mean, I used to tell my kids there's a difference between being polite and being kind. Polite is please, thank you. Would you like to try the vegan option? That's politeness. Being kind is telling people, like, I believe in tough love. I believe in telling the truth and to, shaking somebody, metaphorically speaking, and saying, like, wake the fuck up. Because that's what worked for me to become vegan. I needed somebody like Gary Yourofsky to just kind of got my attention. Like, that's what I tell people. I tell people, you're not a good person if you're not striving to be vegan. You are an evil, bad person. They hate to hear that.
But
it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I say striving, and the reason I say striving, I don't say that you have to be vegan. You have to strive, because some people are just starting to learn and just at the beginning stages. It's just, okay, you might not be vegan yet, but if you are like learning and getting there and striving, I mean, really striving, not just saying you're trying, but do you remember, for example, when you first became vegan? Some people say they became vegan overnight, and I totally don't believe not one single person became vegan overnight. I don't think so. I think before they made that decision, they had a lot of different clicks happening, because it is just, you don't just hear about it one time and then immediately clear out your entire fridge and throw out your leather shoes, because it's so incredibly stunning. It's so shocking that you need process time, unless you're like a superhuman somehow. Hi, Bella, what do you want? This is Bella. You're telling me it's time to eat? I think she's telling me it's time to eat.
Oh, do you need to feed her?
Yeah. But you know what? I think maybe we can sort of... Can you just wait now? Hey, Bella, go down. Maybe it's time. Okay, Bella. Yes, Bella. I'll get you your food. Okay? Just hold on. Let's wait. All right. I'll go. Okay, she's going. She's going to wait patiently. But yeah. So, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, yeah, I just wanted to say I agree that no one I think there's a lot of subconscious thinking going before someone becomes vegan, because my sister was vegan for about 6 months before I was, and we didn't really get to talk about animal rights until around the 6 month mark. We just weren't really seeing each other at the time. We were both studying and working full time.
Okay.
But once I was properly educated, the conscious decision was an overnight decision. So my conscious decision was overnight, and I cleaned out my fridge. I did exactly what you said. But in that 6 months, there were little subtleties happening on a subconscious level. I never thought about animal rights or even the word vegan, but as I was eating food and, subconsciously thinking about, oh, this is different from like the meat I usually eat off animals' backs, these things are kind of going on in your mind. But the conscious decision itself was literally overnight.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Patricia, for being here today. And if anybody would like to subscribe to this channel, please go ahead and do so. There are so many videos that you can watch, and they will be coming up on the screen. Thank you also for pressing the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. And Patricia, do you want to promote your YouTube channel or any of your other social media?
Yeah, so on YouTube, I'm Patricia Nonis, and I also have a Substack where I try and publish pretty consistently. That's Patricia Nonis as well. On Insta, thanks to George Martin, I'm now Pat GPT, because he really wanted me to change it from That Vegan Lawyer. So I'm Pat GPT on Instagram. And
yeah, I disagree with that. But I just thought, what is this? You should go back to... I'm going to talk to him.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, he really wanted me to, and then I did a poll on my Insta story, and most people didn't want me to. And I was like, look, George, I don't think, and he's like, oh, that's because most people don't know about. And he really pushed for it, so I did it. But whatever.
I don't think so, because what does the GPT have? It has so little to do with who you are, your whole value system.
I don't know what it was.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you a while.
About it.
I'll go and check on you in 6 months and make sure it's changed back. We need that vegan. We still need, where's that vegan plumber?
Yeah.
We want to see the vegan plumber bent over with a little butt crack, and we want to see that vegan, what else? The vegan dentist. We need all of us to come out of the closet.
Of every different demographic.
Thanks for being here.
Thank
All
you.
right.
It's been really
See
challenging.
you. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye.
Let's follow that vegan teacher on YouTube right now. Let's help her save every